Hey guys, I hope that you're doing well. Well, every time I seem to sit down to film a video these days, the traffic gets crazy outside of my space, but hey, I'm working on fixing that, so we're just going to have to put up with it today. So for any interruptions and noise or whatever, I'm sorry. Just wanted to really make a quick video today on all the ways that we kick ourselves when we are having troubles in our lives by asking the wrong people for help. What do I mean by that? Some people that we confide in, that we want to hold space for us, that we want to be able to talk to about things, are not able to hold that space for us correctly. And that can lead to issues and problems further down the track. Maybe your deepest, darkest confidences get shared around with other people. Maybe your deepest, darkest confidences get shared with those people that they may have been about. Maybe those things that you shared get used against you by that person you shared with later on in different things in life. Maybe lots of things have happened when you've opened up and been vulnerable with somebody and shared your innermost thoughts or secrets, or even not even things that are that inner, but just blow off steam, and then suddenly it erupts into World War III when it gets shared with a third party or whatever. I'm sure everyone can relate to that. It can also happen when you share with people who are not emotionally equipped to deal with what you're telling them, and that makes it too heavy for them to bear, and they have to then share with somebody else as well, because it can trigger other people, things in them, when you talk about stuff that's deep and dark or not what they expect to come from you, right? And so then that can stop us from sharing in the future, and that can make us shut down the vulnerable parts of us. That can make us be not as honest, not as truthful, and then it can lead us to put on a mask in certain situations and not be ourselves, or not even explore what being ourselves is, because we tried to do that once with somebody who wasn't able to hold that space, and it's left wounds within us about sharing. And I've had that happen a few times. And I used to get really crusty about some of the stuff that has happened. But over the last few years, especially since learning about coaching, I realised that it's just sometimes too much for somebody else to hold. So I just want to encourage you, it's important to share, it's important to get those things out, but it's also important to know your audience, to know your person, to know that maybe that isn't the best place to share. And some of the greatest things that I've had when I've coached people is people saying to me, I love that I can share anything with you, and I know that we're not going to meet up for coffee next week and suddenly some of what I've shared comes out. And that can happen with friends. They can genuinely be really, really kind and caring, but you may have shared something with them that nobody else knows about, and then next week when you're in a social setting, they check up on you in the most caring way, but then all of a sudden ears overhear it, or something gets out, or people start asking questions, and it can be hard. So I want to encourage you to find somebody that you can talk to in the respect that somebody who maybe is neutral, somebody you are not going to talk to on the daily, somebody that it's not going to be too much of a burden for them to bear to have that. I know that at times I've worked in places over the last few years where there's been a massive workforce, and I hadn't worked in a big workforce for a lot of years. I'd lived in a small town forever. One of the things that I found is when you are a great listening ear, you will have lots of people come to you. One of the heaviest burdens that I found in that situation, in one of my positions in particular, was that over the space of 48 hours, I had 4 people come to me about the same thing that involved them and a few other people, and I had every side and then some to come to me. And I was happy to do that because I'm the go-to friend, and I don't mind, and I didn't share with anybody else what anybody else had said. None of them knew that anybody else had come to me. But what happened as that situation progressed was that became really heavy for me. And I found myself watching my words and watching my opinion with different people, because I actually had more sides to the story than just their side. And I had confidences which I wanted to keep. and it made it really, really tricky. So I had to withdraw right out of that, and I had to stop being the go-to person, because at that point that became too heavy for me, and it started to affect my ability to be in that position, in that job effectively. So I hope that that makes sense. So there are people out there that you can talk to. There are, we sometimes have one or two trusted people in our life, but again, you've got to weigh up whether they have the bandwidth to deal with what you're going to talk to them about, and whether that has the potential to come up later. So I encourage you to find a counsellor, or a counselling line, or a life coach, or somebody in that space that's trained and able to hold that space for you privately, that's able to hold a big space for you to be able to be vulnerable, to say everything that you want to say without judgment, without fear, so that you can get it out of you. Because 9 times out of 10, once you get something out of you, that halves the way that it feels in your body. It halves the urgency almost, because you've shared it and you've spoken it into words, and it kind of moves it a little bit and can make it feel a little bit less desperate, and you can perhaps sit then within that conversation and explore some options for what to do next. Or maybe you just need to say all the horrible, nasty, revolting things that you would never say to anyone for fear of being judged to said life coach, counsellor or whatever, to get it all out in the way that you feel. Because sometimes we can feel all sorts of ways, and we can want to say a whole heap of stuff, and you can get it out there in that neutral environment. And then suddenly that can feel better, and it can give you a little bit of like clarity and a bit of a release. And then you've got the space to be able to deal with however you want to deal with it. Speaking is important. Moving energy is important. Your feelings are important. Feeling those feelings are important, because what we stuff down stays in the body. And if we stuff for too long, it can show up as all sorts of things, as stiffness, as headaches, as tummy upsets, as just feeling weighed down and bogged down. Throat issues, if you're not speaking your truth, if you're not speaking your thoughts, if you're not telling people how you really feel, you may find that you end up with lots and lots of throat issues. I can speak from experience when I would shut my mouth when I needed to not shut my mouth for years and years and years and years. And finally, now that I've started to speak over the last couple of years, I've had probably one throat problem in that whole time. And that was when, again, I was starting to shut myself down again. And so I found the right space to share so that I was able to move along. And those throat issues opened up and disappeared. I think it's really important at this time. There are so many people with things happening that are weighing on them that may seem little, but if you've got lots and lots of little things that you're keeping inside of you, that you're not speaking about, that you're masking up over, eventually those little things turn into a big thing, and you can feel really, really weighed down. So find somebody that you can talk to. Find a space somewhere that you can talk to. Reach out to people. Reach out to people who are able to do it for you though. Because like I said, sometimes we can put weights on other people's shoulders, and we don't know what else is already on their shoulders. And sometimes when they speak out and blab and say things and share some of the stuff that you've shared, it's not because of anything to do with you. Sometimes it's just because the weight for them was too much, and that was the only way they knew how to deal. Sometimes not, but hey, sometimes that's the truth. All right, I hope that this was helpful. Thank you for spending time with me, and I hope to see you again in the next video. Please feel free to like the video if you did like it. Share something in the comments that maybe it brought up for you, some ways that maybe you've found that have helped you, and share it with somebody else if you think that somebody else may get some value from the information that I've shared. Okay, I'm Suze from Smarting Coaching, and I'll see you again in the next video. Take care.